You're listening to First Paso. Because sometimes you simply need someone to help you take that first paso.
Hello and welcome to First Paso, a show where we learn together how to take that first paso toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. My name is Candace Olushala, and as I told you guys last episode, this month is my birthday month, and I'm not the best at celebrating myself. I'm not the best at inviting people to celebrate myself. I'm quite introverted when it comes to self-celebration. So I'm going to do what I did last year, which was to post a link to my birthday wish list and allow people who feel impressed upon their hearts and impressed upon their bank accounts to get me a gift that I actually desire. So that's going to be in the show notes below. I'm really excited to do this again because when I did it last year for the first time ever, I was shocked, one, that so many people would actually participate. I remember feeling super uncomfortable sending out the list to people, and yet the responses were all overwhelmingly happy and willing and excited for me to try this. So I got gifts from all over the world, people who I would have never thought would even look at the list, sent me a gift through my list. And I just want to do it again because it made me feel special and appreciated that people would even want to bless me for my birthday in that way. If you don't want to do it like that, you're more than welcome to also send me a gift card if you desire to do that. And you can email that to me if you do it virtually at hello@candaceolushala.com. I would gladly also accept gift cards. Another way you can celebrate me for my birthday is actually subscribing to this podcast. If you go in the show notes, there's a way for you to donate, and you can click on that link, and that will take you to the page that would show you how to donate and be a perpetual donor, which is like subscribing to my show. So any way that you do that, any way that you want to support me, or even posting about my show or things that you loved about my show during the birthday month, and you can do hashtag happy birthday Candace, I would love that and would be excited to see that. Tag Candace Olushala, tag First Paso on social media, and I would just love to hear how you want to celebrate me if you feel inclined in however way you feel led. So with that being said, today I want to share something that kind of ties in with what we talked about last week regarding celebrating our wins. And it's some real-time struggles that I am dealing with right now in this transition season that I'm in, that's more so of a heavily mindset shift of a transition. What do you do when you feel like you are regressing heavily in what you thought you had already learned? This has been a question that I've been asking myself. I give talks, and my main message is leading people to live their most fulfilled life for the rest of their life. It is something that I still believe in. It is something that I'm actively living out, even with the ups and downs of my life and the stresses, the fights that I feel like I'm fighting, and the ways that I'm just trying to learn how to navigate the world that I live in. I still hold on to being fulfilled, and it's a proclamation that is continued hope that the fulfillment doesn't come from me, but comes from the God outside of me gifting his fulfillment to me. I share this message all over the world, and I am actively in a season where a lot of the things that I talk about, as far as lessons that I learned, things that I broke free from, and have been excited to share with other people so they can be unlocked and released in embracing their wholeness, seeing their purpose for what it is, accepting it, and walking and living free in this life, fulfilled to capacity. I feel like a lot of those things I'm regressing on. And I've been questioning if the regression equates to not having learned the lesson. So let's talk about this in relation to last week. Last week, we talked about wins, celebrating your small micro wins, even as though they are the biggest wins that you've ever achieved. Highly go back to wanting you to watch that or listen to that episode. I think it's a great setup for what we're talking about today. So in light of that conversation, one of the things that I talked about was how in life you feel like you're going through a season of transition in one area, but then you're going through all these other seasons of transitions in other areas, and you feel like you're at different grade levels for different areas of transition. But what I didn't think about, which I've been thinking a lot about this week and even today, this morning, is that transitioning requires learning a lesson and then being met with another angle of that lesson. So a way that I was thinking about it in how I'm actively feeling and processing where I'm at in a very specific area of my life. I feel like I was thinking that life was like math to me. I'm really good at math. And as a pharmacist, I should be. I've loved math for as long as I can remember. Math came easy for me until I got to trigonometry. I did not want to prove that a triangle was a triangle because I see that it has three corners and has three sides. So what are we proving? It's just the definition of triangle is how I saw trigonometry and geometry. Trig, cosine, sine, tangent, and then just geometry and then figuring out the proofs and all this. Trig and geometry, throw them in the trash. That's how I felt about those classes. And they made me question whether or not I even knew math. Math, I was in advanced math from as early as 5th grade, 6th grade, when they started me in pre-algebra and algebra 1 before I made it to 7th grade and did geometry, trigonometry, and algebra 2. I did algebra 2 by 8th grade. By 9th grade, I was in calc 1. I did calc 2. I did calc 2 like 2 or 3 times just for fun because I just really like the content of calc 2. That's how much I love calc and math in general. So getting to levels of math where I was like, why is this not easy? Why is math not clicking for me in this area? I thought something was wrong with me and maybe I had been deficient in my understanding of math this whole time. Life kind of feels like that for me right now, except that it feels more like I'm doing a really great job in Calc 1, in Calc 2. I learned it well. I beasted it, took it multiple times, feel like I know this material. And it feels like I am back in Calc 2 as though I've never done Calc 2 before and mastered it. Another analogy I gave myself in this was like riding a bike. So there's that, I rode a bike when I was a kid. It's been so long since I rode a bike, I can't remember. There's that type of experience. And I think we all have moments like that in our lives where we used to be so great at a thing. And because time has lapsed, There's some kind of recollection, but it's not as solid and as sharp as it was in the seasons that we were doing it regularly. But it doesn't mean we didn't master it then. It's just been so long that we've somewhat lost our skill or aspects of our skill. This is like riding a bike every day, multiple times a day. You've gone through the falling, you've gone through the training wheels, you've gone through the getting the training wheels off and continuing to fall, putting the training wheels back on, then getting that balance again, taking them off, falling, and then deciding you're just going to fall until you don't fall anymore. And now you're like riding one-handed, you're riding with two legs on one side, you can stand, you can go without hands, you can ride backwards, you're doing papa wheelies and all these things. This is your like daily thing. You feel like you've really mastered the bicycle. Your endurance is awesome. Your tricks are amazing. You can do this in your sleep. It feels like it's becoming and has become a part of you. Until you move. Maybe you were riding your bike on steep hills and you felt like you had all this endurance and it was like really great. But then you moved to a place that didn't have as many hills, but your endurance maybe has changed because elevation's changed. So your breathing feels off. And instead of thinking, oh, well, maybe it's because of the move and there's things that I need to adjust to in this environment that I didn't have back where I was before and was comfortable with, maybe something's actually wrong with me. I need to go to a doctor and check to see if my lungs are okay, if I got lung cancer, because I'm not breathing well, I'm not getting my gripping right. All I did was move. That's what these last 2 years in California have felt like for me. All I did was move from Kentucky to California. And it's as though every breakthrough I felt I had accomplished and reached and received and shared with the world about is now falling apart and like I'm regressing. And I started asking myself, what's wrong with me? What is going on? Have you ever felt like that? Because I feel like I'm not alone in this. This idea that once we've mastered a concept in our lives, that means any mistakes or any sense of regression, no matter what angle it's coming from, it's a sign that maybe you didn't learn it the way you thought. Maybe you didn't master it. Maybe you actually are still struggling with boundaries. Maybe you are still struggling with speaking up. Maybe you thought you had your voice back until you got around some familiar people who went around them. You feel like you lose your sense of self. Maybe you thought you could keep the weight off, and now it's come back and you don't know what happened. Maybe you just thought you were doing better, and now you can't figure out why the world seems to be slipping out from under you. Well, this again, real time, this is my life. This is what I'm trying to figure out, and maybe we can talk this through together. So, what I've been processing regarding accomplishing a thing and learning a concept is that the world has taught us that mastery equals no failure after. Mastery means there's no need to learn anything new, even if it's at this level. And it's this topic. It's almost like we've been taught that once you learn to walk, you best not ever fall again. And once you learn to run, you better only be able to run at that speed or faster. It's either stay the same and maintain or progress. Any kind of regression means that you really aren't doing your job. You're not breeding excellence. You are not disciplined. When in reality, I'm coming to realize is that lessons aren't linear. Lessons are cyclical. And what I mean by that is that things are not black and white. Learning how to walk on carpet is different from knowing how to walk on concrete, on ice. There's just different things we have to navigate. There are environmental factors. Sometimes it's our proximity to certain people that send us into a space of ourselves that is an unhealthy place. Maybe we didn't realize that in keeping our distance from a thing, thinking we're protecting ourselves and getting ourselves out of that toxic situation, it actually prevented us from growing to know how to stand despite those things. So then when we go back or we're around those same people or those same environments or similar situations, we now feel like we're losing our footing and now we're questioning ourselves, what's wrong? There was a video, I think it was on The And, where Allison Stoner and I can't even remember her name from High School Musical. They're basically like best friends. And they were having a conversation and Allison Stoner asked her best friend, or no, she didn't ask her best friend. Her best friend asked her, like, where have you seen me be in a way that you've never seen me be before? And how does that make you feel? It was something along the lines of that. And Allison Stoner told her that she always sees her as this strong, confident, energetic powerhouse of a woman until she saw her around her family. And it was like she became a little girl, like a child. And Allison barely recognized her. She would become quiet, docile, like she lost herself. And her friend started to cry and admitted that, yeah, that's a space that makes her feel like that. I don't know the rest of her story. I don't know if she tries to avoid her family and stay as far away from them as possible so that she can continue feeling strong and confident. And I'm not saying that we need to keep ourselves in painful, toxic situations so that we learn how to stay grounded. That's not what I'm saying. Life doesn't always tell us to stay in the same situation so we can grow in that manner. Sometimes it does. And that is hard to swallow. We want to escape everything. In fact, our culture currently encourages that any sense of discomfort, we need to flee from the hills. We don't assess it. We don't address it. We don't try to figure out what is going on inside of ourselves in our internal environments. We just want to get out of the external situation so our internal will stay calm. But if you remember back in the episode with Mati about peace be still, again, highly recommend that episode. You can go back to check that one. That conversation, we drew out this idea that peace is inside of us. And external factors are not to dictate how our peace is. We might have alarms that go off inside of us, but alarms are opportunities to learn. They're opportunities to reflect. They're also opportunities to discern a thing, because not everything we feel is from us. We do live in a spiritual world, and spiritual beings do play an effect on us. And they place things on us that make us feel different ways, think different ways. And we have to really assess what is going on inside. Is that me? Is that something else? What is going on? Am I even responding to the active situation, or am I actually responding to something that happened years and decades ago that I'm now conditioned to this type of response in situations that remind me of that thing? Even if I don't have the mental memory, my body remembers and has kept the score of how to respond to scenarios like that. We don't know what's always going on. We don't always know how to operate. We don't always know if this is what we should be doing in the circumstance. And this is where I genuinely am grateful that I am actively learning what it means to do life in community. Because being fulfilled, living your most fulfilled life, is not possible in solitude. I'm going to say that again. Living your most fulfilled life is not possible living in solitude. Choosing to live in solitude is not going to allow you to reach your fullest self. And your fullest self is going to be on a trajectory of learning and growing and setbacks and growth. The net growth experience of our lives happens until the day we take our last breath, or the day that Jesus comes in the clouds of glories to take his children home. Those are that's the only option we have. We don't ever really just arrive at a point. There are arrival points, and even in those arrival points, they just give us new perspectives and different angles in which to assess something else. So, how do we deal with that? How do we deal with this mentally and emotionally when we are excited about where we are, how we're growing, how we're thriving, and then we have these moments where we feel like we're failing and we're falling apart? Given that I'm literally trying to figure this out right now, I can tell you what I processed today. And hopefully what I am thinking right now will get us on a trajectory where maybe we'll learn even more things that will help us along the way. One thing I'm learning is that we can't assess ourselves to death. We will drive ourselves crazy. We can often be really picky on ourselves. We may have been taught that perfection means no mistakes. Perfection does mean no mistakes. We've also were taught that excellence means no mistakes, and that perfection and excellence are the same. In reality, they're not. Excellence has mistakes accounted for. Mistakes are built into excellence. Without them, you're not really human. And excellence requires your full humanness, your full self to be involved. And your full self is flawed. Your full self is not Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Our full selves are just who we are. And perfection shouldn't really even be in our vocabulary. We're working towards becoming perfect, and that requires excellence. Surrendering to the process of becoming versus believing that we have to already be there by a certain time in our lives and that we just need to maintain our perfection. No, we're on a journey. We're being perfected until the day we die. And that's only if we want to surrender to the spiritual process of transformation. So that's one thing I'm processing now. Another thing is that other people are definitely required to make sense of things that we felt like we figured out. No one is self-made. And I think I've said this on this show before. No one is self-made. Even those that say that they read books that were written by other people. They watched videos that were recorded by other people. They watched other people. But they just didn't do everything by themselves. Even how they processed information came from someone outside of them. So there's no self-making. But we are made. We are made at birth, and we are made continually through our experiences, through our interactions, through our connections with the world around us and all the amazing people in it. Even actually the people that weren't so amazing in it. They help shape how we see. Our lens is adjusted by the experiences that we have. So having people in your close circle that you trust, people that will be honest with you and are willing to help expand your paradigm in a way that you may have been trying to figure out, and with all the grit in you, still haven't been able to understand. Someone outside of you can bring a new light to something, and though you may internally have some turmoil in processing a new paradigm, there may be another part of you that's going, I didn't know. Let me see. Let me check this out. Let me try to open this picture. I think lastly, I would say that something that we could do is be honest and funnel our honesty through the channel of grace. This is where I really, really struggle. I'm not the best at showing myself grace, especially when I feel like I'm being challenged by things that I thought I already knew. Thought I already had this nailed. Thought I had already learned this lesson. It's like going to the gym and you felt like, you're so strong until you do that other workout and you didn't realize, how am I weak in this area? I thought I was working out the muscles. And you realize maybe not that muscle, or maybe that was a muscle you were working, but not at that angle. So the angle is shifting that muscle's ability to find its footing. There's nothing wrong with the muscle. It's just a new way to learn how to strengthen it. I'm not great at showing myself grace. In fact, I suck at it in full transparency. I don't do well with grace. I even struggle with my honesty. Not because I'm trying to lie, but because my self-assessment isn't always grace leaning. It's more condemnation leaning. That in doing my best to be honest, I reveal views of myself that I haven't overcome, which is something that I naturally would want to feel embarrassed by, especially with having a show like this, being an orator, preaching all across the world, but embracing your whole self. What I'm learning about this phrase that God gave me, embrace wholeness, unlock purpose, live free, is that embracing wholeness is not a one-time event. Embracing wholeness is embracing your whole self, even as it changes. So 4-year-old me needed to embrace that season of my life and who I was then. And I can't take 10-year-old self and now be condemning. It's still me. I'm just older. I've learned new things. I have new struggles. And 35-year-old me can't do that either. Unless I decide to. Unless I choose to, and I don't want other people to help me navigate my thoughts, or if I don't want to open up to the Lord and share what's on my heart and my mind about what I'm trying to process, and for Him to help me to see me the way He sees me, so I'm not confusing myself about myself. I'm learning not just to accept the concept of grace and to give it to other people around me, but when I am in need of that same grace, to not compartmentalize my acceptance that I know God gives me grace, while simultaneously, despite that gratitude for His grace over my life, not having the capacity to extend His grace that He gave me to myself. I don't want us to compartmentalize being given grace, being shown unconditional love. When other people, or when God gives us grace and love, in all honesty with ourselves, we need to learn how to accept those things, especially if they're done in truth and in genuine desire. I'll leave us with this. I'm in the middle of reading the book of Exodus, my second go around this year. And the Israelites could have taken 11 days to get from Egypt to Canaan, the promised land. And they ended up basically going in circles for 40 years. How frustrating, right? So frustrating. Well, I knew that God was showing them grace. God was showing them grace that He knew that they had been so traumatized down to their epigenetics over 430 years time in a way that had nothing to do with Him. And it was going to take some time to get that thing out of them. And most of them still didn't get it. Their children were the ones who got it and were granted access into the promised land. After all that circulating, after all those revisits to old traumas and new ways of thinking and new ways to live free and how to not just live free, but like actually think, process freedom. They didn't even know the concept. They were relating slavery and bondage as real freedom. They didn't know how to make sense of this new life they were living. And all that happened was they changed locations. But in changing locations, their environment changed, the people around them changed, their circumstances changed, their work changed, their challenges changed. It wasn't just a move. It came with a lot of factors. And this is where God's grace came in. He could have been angry that they didn't make it in 11 days and just get rid of all of them. But he didn't. He had the patience to wrestle through it with them. He kept his promise. And those that could accepted it and entered that promised land. And they still had to do more work in the promised land. They weren't done. Yeah, they arrived somewhere, and it was great to be there. It was better than where they used to be. But it didn't mean they were to stop learning, because now they're in another new location with new surroundings and new people and new things to adjust to. Transition is not black and white. Transition is not just A to B. There are so many subsections that loop and swoop and then connect back, and then you got to refer to paragraph 3, and then it's just a lot of mixing up. And that's part of the process. This is messy. Wholeness is messy. Can you embrace your yesterday self and your today self and be excited for however your tomorrow self shows up? I'm trying. I'm asking myself this. Take it a day at a time. Find community here. Check in the comments. Look at who watches this pod, who comments on the social posts, and start having dialogues. That's what we're here for. I want us to grow together. I want us to figure this out. But I also want us to recognize that when we don't have it all figured out, even when we don't have it figured out, as long as we're trying and we don't even fully understand, but we have peace that surpasses our understanding, so our thoughts and our emotions can be guarded in Christ Jesus, if you are a believer, then we keep going. And if you don't believe in Jesus, listen, you can still keep going anyway. Keep pressing forward. Keep moving forward. Moving forward doesn't mean linear. It means the decision to press through despite moments of regression, moments of setback, moments of lost balance, moments of losing your grip. It's all part of moving forward. All of that is part of moving forward. It's a net growth. It's a net moving forward. And it requires our mistakes so that it requires our weaknesses so that it requires our full humanness so that the blossoming of our most fulfilled selves can be maintained and pruned and guided and gifted until it's time to lay to rest or go home. That's it for today's episode, guys. If you loved this episode, please share it. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, let me know in the comment section. You can also comment on whatever platform you listen to this to. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, please also do the polls. They help me to see where you're at. There's a question in the YouTube comments that I'm leaving for you. Feel free to have a conversation and dialogue around that question. I would love to hear from you guys there. Otherwise, I love you guys. And thanks for going on this journey of life with me. Listen, sometimes we simply need someone to help us take that first paso, and the pasos after that are slipping and sliding and messy, but we're getting there. Until next time, take care, stay safe, God bless, and besitos. Love you guys. Bye.